Then the email arrived. It wasn't from a client or a hospital, but from a prestigious law firm she vaguely recognized. The subject line was terse, urgent business proposition. Curiosity, laced with a desperate hope, compelled her to open it. His network of informants had confirmed Liam and Alara's growing closeness. They were spending more time together, not just in public, but in the private confines of the mansion. This was unacceptable. Liam was supposed to be isolated, vulnerable, easily manipulated. A genuine connection, a burgeoning love, threatened everything Marcus had worked for. He needed to act, and he needed to act decisively. The email detailed an extraordinary offer, a temporary marriage contract with a prominent CEO, Liam Thorne, for a substantial sum that would cover all her grandmother's medical expenses. The terms were shocking in their bluntness. Liam Thorne needed a wife, a fake wife, for a year. And crucially, the email emphasized, he needed someone unassuming, discreet, and unlikely to attract unwanted public attention. Marcus escalated his efforts on multiple fronts. His first move was to intensify his manipulation of the Thorne Enterprises board. He began spreading insidious rumors, hinting that Liam was becoming distracted by his new wife, that his judgment was clouded by emotion, and that the company's future was at risk due to his unprofessional personal life. He subtly questioned the legitimacy of the marriage, suggesting it was a hastily arranged sham that would ultimately be detrimental to the company's image and stability. He pushed for a vote of no confidence, attempting to rally enough board members to challenge Liam's authority before the 30th birthday deadline. Alara stared at the words, a bitter laugh escaping her lips. Unassuming, discreet, unlikely to attract unwanted public attention. It was a thinly veiled euphemism for plain, forgettable. Ugly. Her lack of conventional beauty, her invisibility, was suddenly her greatest qualification. The irony was sharp, almost painful. Liam Thorne is losing his edge, Marcus whispered to keyboard members during private meetings, his voice dripping with false concern. He's letting this new relationship consume him. Thorne Enterprises needs a steady hand, not a lovesick boy. Liam Thorne. The name alone conjured images of power, wealth, and ruthless ambition. CEO of Thorne Enterprises, a titan in the tech industry, known for his sharp mind and even sharper business acumen. Why would a man like him need a fake marriage? And why would he choose someone like her? Simultaneously, Marcus launched a more direct and personal assault on Alara. He couldn't attack her appearance anymore, so he targeted her character and her past with renewed vigor. He leaked more distorted information about her architectural project, fabricating stories of her alleged unprofessionalism and lack of commitment. He even hired a private investigator to dig deeper into her personal life, searching for any vulnerability, any secret, that could be exploited to publicly humiliate her and drive a wedge between her and Liam. The email explained further, vaguely referencing a complex family will and corporate obligations. It hinted at a situation where a public, glamorous partner would only complicate matters. They needed someone who would blend in, fulfill the legal requirement, and then quietly disappear. A mutual acquaintance, a former professor of Alara's who knew of her intelligence and her desperate situation, had apparently recommended her, vouching for her discretion and her desperate need for funds. But Marcus's most dangerous move was a direct threat. He believed that if he could scare Alara away, or at least make her a liability, Liam would be forced to abandon her, thus fulfilling Marcus's goal of isolating Liam and discrediting the marriage. Alara's moral compass spun wildly. A fake marriage. It felt like a betrayal of everything she believed in, a cheapening of a sacred institution. But then, she pictured her grandmother's frail smile, heard the doctor's grim prognosis. What was a little dignity? A year of pretense? If it meant her grandmother could live, could have a chance at recovery. The sum offered was staggering, enough to erase all her financial woes and provide the best care possible. One evening, as Alara was leaving her grandmother's hospital room, a dark, unmarked car pulled up beside her. A burly man with a cold, expressionless face stepped out. "A message from Mr. Thorne," he grunted, his voice devoid of emotion. "You're getting too close to things that don't concern you. Miss Vance, some secrets are best left buried, for your own safety." And for your grandmothers, he delivered the veiled threat with chilling precision, his eyes lingering on the hospital entrance before he got back into the car and sped away. With trembling fingers, Ilara drafted her reply. Every fiber of her being screamed against it, but the image of her grandmother, fading away, was a more powerful motivator than any personal pride. I accept, she typed, the words feeling heavy and alien. She was stepping into a world she didn't understand, sacrificing a piece of herself for the only person who truly mattered. The meeting was set for the following day. She would meet the CEO, sign the contract, and become, for a year, his invisible wife. The Thorn Enterprises headquarters loomed, a glass and steel behemoth that seemed to scrape the sky. Ilara felt a familiar sense of inadequacy as she stepped into its polished lobby, the hushed whispers of high-powered executives and the gleam of expensive suits making her feel even more out of place in her worn jacket and practical shoes. Her appointment was with Liam Thorne, the man who held her grandmother's future and her own dignity in his hands. Ilara felt a cold dread grip her heart. This wasn't just corporate maneuvering, this was personal, and it was dangerous. The threat to her grandmother, however subtle, was a line she would not allow anyone to cross. She immediately called Liam, her voice trembling as she recounted the encounter. A sleek, silent elevator whisked her to the executive floor, where a stern-faced assistant directed her to a vast, minimalist office. Liam Thorne sat behind a massive desk of dark wood, bathed in the cool light filtering through panoramic windows. He was even more imposing in person than in his media photos, tall, with broad shoulders, sharp, intelligent eyes that seemed to miss nothing, and a jawline that spoke of unyielding resolve. His dark suit was impeccably tailored, exuding an aura of controlled power and formidable intellect. Liam's reaction was swift and furious. His face, usually so composed, was contorted with rage. He threatened you and Anya, his protective instincts, now fully awakened, roared to life. He knew Marcus was behind this. The gloves were off. He didn't offer a handshake, merely a curt nod. Miss Vance, thank you for coming. His voice was deep, resonant, and utterly devoid of warmth. Let's be direct. My legal team has drafted the contract. This changes everything, Liam stated, his voice tight with controlled fury. He's crossed a line. We're not just fighting for the company anymore. Ilara, we're fighting for your safety, for Anya's safety. We're fighting for justice. He pushed a thick document across the gleaming desk. Ilara picked it up, her fingers trembling slightly. It was a pre-nuptial agreement, a marriage contract, and a non-disclosure agreement all rolled into one. The terms were as cold and precise as she had anticipated. Ilara, despite her fear, felt a surge of resolve. Marcus's escalation had solidified her commitment. She was no longer just fulfilling a contract. She was fighting for her life, for her family, and for the man who had unexpectedly become her anchor. The game had gone from corporate chess to a desperate struggle for survival, and Liam and Ilara, now a truly united front, were ready to face the antagonist head-on. The time for subtle investigation was over. It was time for confrontation. Marcus Thorne's blatant threat against Ilara and her grandmother had ignited a firestorm within Liam. The last vestiges of his corporate detachment vanished, replaced by fierce, protective resolve. The game was no longer about inheritance or company control. It was deeply personal. He would not allow Marcus to harm Ilara or Anya. The duration is 1 year, Liam stated, his gaze fixed on her, assessing, almost clinical. During this period, you will reside at my primary residence. We will make public appearances as a married couple as required by my corporate obligations and the terms of my grandfather's will. Beyond that, our lives will remain entirely separate. There will be no personal intimacy, no emotional entanglement. This is a business arrangement. Miss Vance, nothing more. We need to hit him where it hurts, Liam stated, his voice a low growl as he paced his study. Ilara sat across from him, her fear replaced by a steely determination. We have to expose him, not just to the board, but to the world. We need irrefutable proof of everything. Ilara swallowed, her throat dry. I understand, Mr. Thorne. She forced herself to meet his gaze, though his intensity made her uncomfortable. My understanding is that this is a marriage of convenience, purely for appearances. Their alliance, already strong, now became an unstoppable force. Liam, with his vast resources and corporate access, and Ilara, with her sharp intellect and meticulous attention to detail, began to systematically unravel Marcus's intricate web of deceit. Precisely, he confirmed, a flicker of something she couldn't quite decipher. Perhaps relief, perhaps disdain in his eyes. My family's will stipulates I must be married by my 30th birthday to retain full control of Thorn Enterprises. That deadline is rapidly approaching. A public, high-profile engagement would only attract unwanted scrutiny and potential sabotage from certain parties. Your unassuming nature makes you an ideal candidate. You won't draw unnecessary attention. Their first target was the sabotage of Ilara's architectural project. Liam assigned a team of forensic IT specialists to meticulously examine the old Academy servers and Ilara's damaged files. It was a long shot, but Liam was relentless. Meanwhile, Ilara provided every detail she could remember about the incident, including the name of her rival, Julian Vance. The words unassuming nature hung in the air, a polite but unmistakable confirmation of her plainness. Ilara felt a familiar sting, but she pushed it down. This wasn't about her pride, it was about her grandmother. The IT team, under Liam's direct supervision, unearthed a crucial piece of evidence, a hidden backdoor program, installed on the Academy's network that allowed remote access to student files. The IP address traced back to a burner account, but further digging, cross-referenced with Marcus's known associates and shell companies, led them to a startling connection. The program had been designed by a tech firm secretly owned by Marcus Thorn. The sabotage of Ilara's project was not a random act of academic rivalry. It was a calculated move orchestrated by Marcus. He had likely targeted Ilara because her innovative, sustainable design posed a potential future threat to his own environmentally questionable real estate ventures, or simply to demonstrate his power and control over emerging talent. In return, Liam continued, seemingly oblivious to her internal struggle, your grandmother's medical expenses, current and future, will be fully covered. A trust will be established to ensure her long-term care. You will also receive a substantial lump sum payment upon signing and a monthly stipend for the duration of the contract. All details are in the document. He was testing the waters, Liam concluded grimly, looking at the evidence. He saw your talent, Ilara, even back then. He wanted to crush it before it could grow. Ilara scanned the financial clauses. The figures were indeed staggering. More money than she had ever dreamed of. It was enough to save her grandmother, to give her a fighting chance. The relief was immense, almost intoxicating. But it came with a heavy price. She would be selling a year of her life, her identity, to a man who saw her as nothing more than a functional, ugly solution to his problems. Next, they focused on Marcus's corporate malfeasance. Liam had always suspected his uncle was siphoning funds, but proving it had been difficult. Now, with Ilara's keen eye for anomalies and her understanding of complex systems, they began to connect the dots. They discovered a series of shell companies, disguised as legitimate suppliers and consultants, that were billing Thorn Enterprises for inflated services and non-existent products. The money was then funneled into Marcus's offshore accounts. Do you have any questions? Liam asked, his voice cutting through her thoughts. Look at these invoices, Ilara pointed out, her finger tracing a pattern on a spreadsheet. These consulting fees are disproportionately high for the services listed. And the dates? They align perfectly with periods of significant capital expenditure for Thorn Enterprises, allowing him to hide the siphoning in plain sight. Ilara hesitated. Just one. What happens after the year is up. Liam's legal team began building a comprehensive case, meticulously documenting every fraudulent transaction, every manipulated document, every instance of corporate sabotage. They found evidence that Marcus had been deliberately undermining Thorn Enterprises' stock value through insider trading and spreading false information, all to create an impression of instability that would justify his takeover. The contract can be extended by mutual agreement, or it will be dissolved, he replied, his expression unreadable. You will be compensated for your time, and the non-disclosure agreement will remain in effect. Our paths will diverge, and you will be free to resume your life. The most damning piece of evidence came from an unexpected source. Liam's father, Marcus Thorn, had kept a hidden safe in his private study, a safe that had remained undiscovered after his death. Liam, remembering a cryptic note in his father's journal about the truth being locked away, had recently found it. Inside, they found a meticulously kept ledger detailing Marcus's illicit activities, including the names of his co-conspirators on the board, and a chilling entry about the accident that killed Marcus. It wasn't a confession, but it strongly implicated Marcus Thorne in arranging the break line severance. She nodded, a profound weariness settling over her. This was it. The deal. The sacrifice. For her grandmother. She would do it. She picked up the pen, her hand steady despite the turmoil within. She signed her name, Ilara Vance, on the dotted line, sealing her fate. Liam Thorne signed his signature bold and decisive. He knew, Ilara whispered, her voice filled with a mix of horror and vindication, as she read the ledger. Your father knew everything. He was building a case against him. Welcome, Mrs. Thorne, he said, his voice flat, a hint of finality in his tone. He extended a hand, a purely formal gesture. Ilara took it. His grip was firm, cold. In his eyes, she saw no recognition, no appreciation, only the reflection of a man who had just secured a vital business transaction. She was his ugly wife, a temporary solution, and in his gaze, she was utterly invisible. The ink on the contract was barely dry, yet Ilara already felt the profound weight of her new reality. She was Mrs. Thorne, in name only, a temporary fixture in a world of unimaginable wealth and calculated appearances. The Thorne mansion, a sprawling edifice of polished marble and hushed opulence, became her new home, a gilded cage that offered security for her grandmother but demanded a piece of her soul. Liam's face was grim, but there was a flicker of grim satisfaction in his eyes. And now, we have the final piece of the puzzle. Marcus didn't just sabotage your project. Ilara, he's been systematically trying to destroy everything my father built, and he even orchestrated his death. He's a criminal, a murderer, and a traitor. Liam Thorne, her husband, remained as distant and impenetrable as ever. Their interactions were confined to formal greetings, polite nods across the vast dining table, and the occasional, stilted conversation about upcoming public events. He treated her with a detached courtesy, a professional respect that underscored the transactional nature of their union. He saw her as a solution, a necessary component in his corporate strategy, nothing more. And in his eyes, she was still the unassuming girl, the one who wouldn't draw unnecessary attention. The web had been unraveled. They had irrefutable evidence, not just of Marcus's corporate fraud and manipulation, but of his long-standing pattern of malicious behavior, stretching back to Ilara's past and culminating in the death of Liam's father. The time for subtle investigation was over. It was time for confrontation, a public reckoning that would expose Marcus Thorne for the monster he truly was. Liam and Ilara, now more united than ever, prepared for the final, decisive battle. The day of the crucial board meeting dawned, a day that would determine the fate of Thorne Enterprises and, irrevocably, the future of Liam and Ilara. The air in the city was thick with anticipation, rumors swirling about a major shakeup within the powerful corporation. Marcus Thorne, still unaware of the full extent of the evidence amassed against him, arrived at the boardroom with a smug, confident air, ready to execute his final power play. This perception of Ilara as plain or ugly wasn't entirely unfounded, at least not to the casual observer. Her life had been a relentless pursuit of knowledge and survival, leaving little room for vanity. Her days were a blur of architectural blueprints, late-night studies, and the constant gnawing worry for her grandmother. Fashion, makeup, and elaborate hairstyles were luxuries she couldn't afford, either in time or money. Her glasses, a necessity, often obscured her expressive eyes, and her practical, often oversized clothes hid a slender frame and an innate grace. The boardroom was a theater of power, filled with the stern faces of Thorne Enterprises board members, each a titan in their own right. Liam sat at the head of the table, Ilara by his side, her presence a silent statement of their unity. Marcus took his usual seat, a predatory glint in his eyes as he surveyed the room. But beneath the unassuming exterior lay a vibrant, complex individual. Ilara possessed a mind that saw beauty in structural integrity, in the elegant curve of a bridge, in the intricate patterns of a city skyline. She had a quiet strength, a resilience forged in the fires of adversity. Her compassion for her grandmother was boundless, a deep well of love that fueled her every sacrifice. She was fiercely intelligent, with a quick wit and a dry sense of humor that rarely saw the light of day. Her hands, though often stained with ink or charcoal from her architectural sketches, were capable of great precision and delicate artistry. The meeting began with the usual formalities, but a palpable tension hung in the air. Liam, with a calm that belied the storm within, began to address the board. "Gentlemen, and madam," he started, his voice resonating with authority. "We are here today to discuss not just the future of Thorn Enterprises, but its very integrity. For too long, this company has been undermined from within, its resources siphoned, its reputation subtly tarnished by one of its own. Her plainness was a shield, a self-imposed invisibility that allowed her to navigate a world that often judged on superficiality. It was a defense mechanism, a way to protect her sensitive nature from the inevitable critiques and dismissals. She had learned early on that her intellect and kindness were rarely seen if her outward appearance didn't conform to conventional standards. Marcus scoffed, a dismissive wave of his hand. "Nonsense. Alexander, are you still peddling these baseless accusations? You're clearly unstable, allowing your personal life to interfere with corporate matters." He gestured towards Alara with a sneer. "Perhaps your wife has filled your head with fanciful tales." One afternoon, while exploring the vast library of the Thorn Mansion, Alara stumbled upon a hidden alcove filled with art books. Her fingers traced the spines of volumes on classical architecture, modern design, and forgotten masters. A quiet joy, long suppressed, began to stir within her. This was her world, her passion. She spent hours there, lost in the pages, a rare smile gracing her lips. "On the contrary, uncle," Liam retorted, his eyes cold, "my wife has helped me uncover the truth, a truth you have meticulously buried for years." He then turned to Alara. "Alara, if you would." Liam, passing by the library, paused at the sight. He had never seen her like this. Relaxed, absorbed, a hint of genuine happiness transforming her features. He had only ever seen her in the context of their contract, a somber, determined figure. This glimpse was unexpected, a subtle crack in the unassuming facade he had so readily accepted. He quickly moved on, dismissing the fleeting image. Yet a tiny seed of curiosity had been planted. Alara rose, her heart pounding, but her resolve unwavering. She held a sleek tablet, displaying a detailed presentation. "Board members," she began, her voice clear and steady. "My name is Alara Thorn, and I am an architect. Years ago, my final project at the academy was sabotaged. I believed it was an isolated incident of academic rivalry. I was wrong. Meanwhile, Alara's grandmother, Anya, was slowly but steadily improving. The best doctors, the most advanced treatments, and a dedicated nursing staff, all funded by the Thorn Trust, were making a tangible difference. Alara visited her every day, sharing stories, reading to her, and feeling a profound gratitude for the sacrifice she had made. The financial burden was gone, replaced by the quiet hope of recovery. She then projected the evidence, the forensic IT report detailing the backdoor program, the IP address tracing back to Marcus's shell company, and the chilling emails between Marcus and the tech firm. "This program," Alara explained, her architect's precision evident in her words, "was designed to corrupt specific digital files, effectively destroying my project. The firm that created it is secretly owned by Mr. Marcus Thorn." Despite the opulence surrounding her, Alara remained grounded. She volunteered at a local community center, teaching basic architectural sketching to underprivileged children, finding solace and purpose in giving back. She continued her own studies, sketching new designs, her mind buzzing with creative energy. She was Mrs. Thorn, but she was still Alara Vance, the architect, the granddaughter, the quiet observer of the world. A gasp rippled through the room. Marcus's face, usually so composed, began to pale. She knew that the world, and especially Liam Thorn, only saw the surface. They saw the ugly girl, the convenient solution. But Alara knew her own truth. She was a woman of substance, of intellect, of quiet beauty that lay far beneath the superficial. The grand ball, a looming date on her social calendar, would be the ultimate test of her ability to play the part of the CEO's wife. She wondered if anyone, especially Liam, would ever truly see beyond the facade. While Ilara navigated the opulent yet isolating world of the Thorne mansion, Liam Thorne carried his own heavy burden, a secret history that had shaped his every decision, including the desperate need for a fake marriage, his cold demeanor, his relentless focus on business, and his apparent disinterest in personal connections were not born of inherent callousness, but from years of calculated survival. This was not an isolated incident, Ilara continued, her voice gaining power. Mr. Thorne orchestrated this attack on my project because its innovative, sustainable design posed a potential threat to his own environmentally questionable real estate ventures. He sought to crush emerging talent that didn't align with his own unethical practices. Liam's family history was a tapestry woven with threads of ambition, betrayal, and a deep-seated rivalry. His grandfather, the formidable founder of Thorne Enterprises, had established a complex will designed to ensure the company remained under the direct control of his descendants. A crucial clause stipulated that the primary heir, Liam, must be legally married by his 30th birthday to fully inherit and control the vast empire. Failure to do so would trigger a transfer of power to the nearest male relative, his uncle, Marcus Thorne. Liam then took over, his voice a hammer blow. This pattern of unethical behavior extends to Thorne Enterprises. We have uncovered years of systematic financial fraud. He displayed the spreadsheets, the invoices for inflated services, the records of money funneled into Marcus's offshore accounts. These are not legitimate business expenses. These are stolen funds, embezzled directly from this company, amounting to hundreds of millions. Marcus Thorne was a man whose charm was as potent as his ambition was ruthless. He had always resented his older brother, Liam's father, for being the favored heir. After Liam's father's untimely death in what was officially ruled an accident but always whispered to be suspicious, Marcus had subtly begun to undermine Liam's position. He was a master manipulator, pulling strings from the shadows, eager to seize control of Thorne Enterprises. He then projected the most damning evidence excerpts from his father's hidden ledger, detailing Marcus's illicit activities and his co-conspirators on the board. The room fell silent as the board members saw their own names, or the names of their associates, implicated in Marcus's schemes. Liam knew Marcus was behind the constant corporate leaks, the sudden dips in stock prices, and the relentless pressure from certain board members. But his uncle's most insidious attacks were personal. Marcus understood Liam's weakness, his desire for genuine connection. He had systematically sabotaged Liam's previous serious relationships, planting seeds of doubt, spreading false rumors, and even orchestrating accidental encounters that led to misunderstandings and heartbreak. Each failed relationship reinforced Liam's growing cynicism, making him wary of any emotional entanglement. He had learned that love, for him, was a liability, a vulnerability Marcus could exploit. And finally, Liam concluded, his voice dropping to a chilling whisper, my father, Marcus Thorne, kept this ledger. He was building a case against his own brother, a case that was tragically cut short by what was ruled an accident. This ledger strongly implicates Marcus Thorne in arranging the brake line severance that led to my father's death. As his 30th birthday loomed, the pressure intensified. Marcus, seeing Liam still unmarried, began to openly challenge his authority, subtly hinting to the board that Liam was unfit to lead. Too distracted by his personal life, a life Marcus himself had meticulously disrupted. Liam was running out of options. He needed a wife, and he needed one fast, but he couldn't risk another emotional casualty, another woman Marcus could use against him. Marcus Thorne erupted. This is slander, lies. You're fabricating this, Alexander. This girl is a gold digger, a liar. She's trying to ruin me. He lunged across the table, his eyes wild with desperation and fury. That's when the idea of a fake marriage, a purely contractual arrangement, began to form. He needed someone discreet, unassuming, someone who wouldn't attract the kind of attention that Marcus thrived on, someone who wouldn't be a target. His trusted legal counsel, aware of his predicament, had discreetly sought out candidates. When Ilara Vance's profile landed on his desk, a brilliant but struggling architect, known for her dedication to her ailing grandmother and her quiet, unassuming nature, Liam saw a solution. She was perfect, intelligent enough to understand the gravity of the situation, desperate enough to accept the terms, and Crucially, outwardly plain enough not to draw the predatory gaze of the media or, more importantly, Marcus. But before he could reach Liam, security guards, strategically placed by Liam, moved swiftly, restraining him. The board members, initially stunned, now looked at Marcus with a mixture of disgust and fear. The evidence was overwhelming, irrefutable. His carefully constructed empire of lies had finally crumbled. He had observed her during their initial meeting, confirming his assessment. She was quiet, focused, and seemed to view the arrangement with the same detached practicality as he did. He hadn't seen her as a person, but as a strategic asset, a necessary shield against his uncle's relentless attacks. He had consciously ignored the fleeting glimpses of intelligence in her eyes, the quiet dignity in her posture. To him, she was the ugly girl, the perfect camouflage. The board, after a brief, tense deliberation, voted unanimously to strip Marcus Thorne of all his positions and assets within Thorne Enterprises, and to cooperate fully with legal authorities in pressing criminal charges. His deceit was publicly exposed. His reign of terror over justice, long awaited, was finally within reach. Liam and Elara, standing side by side, had not only saved Thorne Enterprises, but had also brought a murderer to justice, securing their family's legacy and ushering in a new era of integrity. The aftermath of the board meeting was swift and brutal for Marcus Thorne. Stripped of his power and assets, he was immediately taken into custody. The news of his arrest and the damning evidence presented against him exploded across every media outlet, eclipsing all other headlines. The man once seen as a shrewd, if ruthless, businessman was now exposed as a criminal, a fraudster, and a suspected murderer. The public reaction was a mixture of shock, outrage, and a grim satisfaction that justice was finally being served. What Liam didn't know was that Marcus, with his vast network of informants, was already aware of Liam's desperate search for a temporary wife. He hadn't anticipated Elara, but he was already formulating plans to exploit this new development. He believed Alara's plainness made her weak, easily manipulated, a perfect tool to further destabilize Thorne Enterprises, once Liam had secured his inheritance. He saw her as a temporary obstacle, easily removed once his plans were set in motion. For Liam and Elara, the fallout was equally profound, though vastly different. The initial wave of public fascination with their Cinderella story had been replaced by a deeper respect and admiration. The media, having witnessed their courage and integrity firsthand, now lauded them as heroes who had saved a corporate empire from corruption. The narrative of their fake marriage, once a potential scandal, transformed into a testament to their unexpected bond and shared commitment to truth. Liam, however, was about to discover that his carefully chosen, unassuming wife possessed a depth and strength he had utterly overlooked. The grand charity ball, their first major public appearance as a married couple, was fast approaching. Liam saw it as another necessary performance, a hurdle to clear. He had no idea that this event would not only challenge his perception of Elara, but would also set in motion a chain of events that would expose Marcus's true villainy and irrevocably change his own guarded heart. He was about to learn that true beauty and true strength lay far beyond the superficial. The grand charity ball was the social event of the season, a glittering spectacle where the city's elite gathered to see and be seen. For Liam, it was a crucial public appearance, a necessary performance to solidify his married status and thwart Marcus's attempts to undermine him. For Elara, it was a daunting prospect, a plunge into a world she neither understood nor particularly desired to be a part of. She was the unassuming wife, meant to fade into the background, a mere accessory to Liam's corporate agenda. Liam, no longer under the constant threat of Marcus's machinations, felt a profound sense of liberation. The weight he had carried for years, the burden of his father's legacy and the fight against his uncle, finally began to lift. He addressed the media, his voice calm and resolute, thanking Elara for her unwavering support and acknowledging her pivotal role in uncovering Marcus's crimes. He spoke openly about the initial contractual nature of their marriage, but emphasized how their shared ordeal had forged a genuine, undeniable connection. However, Liam's trusted personal assistant, a kind and discerning woman named Clara, had taken an unexpected interest in Elara. Clara, who had observed Elara's quiet intelligence and genuine nature, felt a pang of sympathy for the young woman thrust into such a cold arrangement, without Liam's direct instruction, but with a subtle nod from Eleanor Thorne, who had also begun to see a spark in Alara. Clara decided to intervene. What began as a necessity, Liam stated in a televised interview, Alara by his side, a strategic alliance to protect my family's legacy, has evolved into something far more meaningful. Alara's courage, her intelligence, and her unwavering integrity not only helped me expose the truth, but also showed me a depth of character I never truly appreciated until now. She is not just my wife. She is my partner, my confidant, and the most extraordinary woman I have ever known. Mrs. Thorne, Clara had said, approaching Alara in the days leading up to the ball. Mr. Thorne requires you to look presentable. We have arranged for a stylist and a gown fitting. It's imperative for the company's image. Her tone was professional, but her eyes held a hint of warmth. Alara, though still unaccustomed to the intense public spotlight, handled it with her characteristic grace. She spoke of her grandmother's recovery, her passion for architecture, and her belief in justice. She didn't shy away from her humble beginnings, instead using her platform to advocate for transparency and ethical practices in both business and design. Alara, accustomed to her practical wardrobe, felt a surge of apprehension. I don't really do gowns. The public, initially captivated by her physical transformation, now saw the true beauty within her resilience, her intelligence, her kindness. The ugly girl who had stunned everyone in a gown was now celebrated for her inner strength and moral compass. The narrative shifted from superficial beauty to profound character, resonating deeply with people who had felt overlooked or underestimated. Just trust me, Clara insisted gently. It's part of the role. Cassandra, Liam's ex-fiancée, watched Marcus's downfall and Liam's public declarations with a mixture of disbelief and bitter regret. Her attempts to discredit Alara had backfired spectacularly, only serving to highlight Alara's integrity and solidify Liam's affection. Her own reputation, once pristine, was now tarnished by her association with Marcus and her petty jealousy. The day of the ball arrived. Alara was led to a lavish dressing room within the mansion, where a team of stylists and makeup artists awaited. She felt like a doll being prepared for display, a strange mixture of discomfort and detached curiosity. They removed her glasses, replacing them with subtle contact lenses. Her hair, usually confined to a simple bun, was painstakingly styled into soft, elegant waves that framed her face. Light, natural makeup enhanced her features, highlighting her expressive eyes and the delicate curve of her lips, which had previously been hidden behind a perpetual seriousness. The legal proceedings against Marcus Thorne moved swiftly. The evidence was overwhelming, and his co-conspirators on the board, facing their own potential charges, quickly turned state's evidence. Marcus faced a future of disgrace and imprisonment, his empire of lies crumbling around him. Then came the gown. It was a masterpiece of midnight blue silk, flowing and ethereal, with delicate silver embroidery that shimmered like starlight. It was chosen not for its ostentation, but for its elegant simplicity, its ability to enhance, rather than overwhelm. When Alara looked in the mirror, she barely recognized herself. The ugly girl, the unassuming architect, had vanished. In her place stood a woman of quiet grace, her inherent beauty finally allowed to shine through. The transformation was breathtaking, even to her own critical eye. For Liam and Alara, the immediate crisis was over. The corporate battle was won. Marcus was neutralized, and the terms of the will were fulfilled. Their contractual marriage, technically, had served its purpose. But as they looked at each other, in the quiet moments away from the cameras and the legal teams, they both knew that something far more significant had transpired. The bond between them, forged in the fires of betrayal and public scrutiny, was no longer a matter of convenience. It was real. It was love. And the question that now lingered in the air was, what would they do with this unexpected, profound connection? The dust of the corporate battle had settled, and the echoes of Marcus Thorne's downfall faded into the background. The terms of the will were fulfilled, the company secured, and the public narrative firmly in their favor. Technically, Liam and Alara's contractual marriage had served its purpose. The year-long agreement, born of desperation and strategic necessity, was nearing its end. But as they looked at each other, in the quiet moments that stretched between official engagements and legal proceedings. They both knew that something far more significant had transpired. Liam, meanwhile, stood in the grand ballroom, exchanging polite but strained pleasantries with various business associates. He felt the familiar weight of expectation, the pressure of the impending deadline, and the constant, unnerving presence of his uncle Marcus, who was already circulating, his eyes sharp with predatory intent. Liam glanced at the entrance, expecting Alara to appear in one of her usual, understated outfits. A quiet presence by his side, the bond between them, forged in the fires of betrayal and public scrutiny, was no longer a matter of convenience. It was real. It was love. Then, the murmurs began. A ripple of hushed gasps, a collective turning of heads. Liam, distracted, followed the gaze of the crowd. One evening, after a particularly long day of meetings with lawyers and PR teams, they found themselves in the Thorne Mansion's vast library, a place that had become their sanctuary. The fire crackled softly in the hearth, casting warm shadows across the shelves of ancient books. Alara was sketching, lost in a new architectural design, while Liam watched her, a profound tenderness in his eyes. And then he saw her. He cleared his throat, breaking the comfortable silence. "Alara," he began, his voice a little rougher than usual, betraying a rare nervousness. "Alara." She looked up, her pencil pausing. "Yes, Liam." She stood at the top of the grand staircase, bathed in the soft glow of the chandeliers, descending with an ethereal grace. The midnight blue gown flowed around her like liquid starlight, clinging in all the right places, yet retaining an air of sophisticated modesty. Her hair, loose and shimmering, framed a face that was no longer plain, but radiant. Her eyes, unhindered by glasses, sparkled with an inner light, and a faint, almost shy smile played on her lips. She moved with a confidence he had never witnessed, a quiet elegance that captivated every eye in the room. He walked towards her, stopping directly in front of her chair. He reached out, gently taking her hand, his touch warm and steady. "Our contract. It's almost over. In a few weeks. It will be a year." Liam felt a jolt, a physical shock that rooted him to the spot. His breath hitched. He had seen beautiful women, countless times, but he had never been truly stunned. He had expected his unassuming wife. He had prepared for a convenient accessory. He had prepared for everything but this. Alara's heart clenched. She knew this. She had prepared for it, but hearing it spoken aloud, from him, still sent a pang of unexpected pain through her. She nodded, unable to speak. He couldn't look away. The woman descending the stairs was not the ugly girl he had hired. She was breathtaking, a vision of understated beauty that commanded attention without demanding it. The transformation was not just external, it was as if her inner light had finally been given permission to shine. "When I first approached you," Liam continued, his gaze unwavering, "I saw a solution, a strategic move. I saw someone unassuming, discreet, someone who wouldn't complicate my life further. I saw what I thought I needed to see. I saw the ugly girl, the convenient answer to a very pressing problem." He paused, his thumb gently stroking the back of her hand. "I was a fool." Marcus Thorne, who had been observing Liam with a smug expression, also saw Alara. His eyes narrowed, a flicker of surprise, then irritation, crossing his face. This was not the plain girl he had anticipated. This was a complication. Alara's eyes widened, a tear gathering at the corner. As Alara reached the bottom of the stairs, her gaze met Liam's. His eyes, usually so guarded, were wide with undisguised awe. A blush crept up her neck, but she held his gaze, a silent challenge in her eyes. She had played her part, and she had stunned everyone. But most importantly, she had stunned him. And in that moment, Liam Thorne realized, with a profound and unsettling clarity, that he had made a terrible misjudgment about the woman he had married. The grand ball, intended as a mere formality, had become a revelation, not just for the guests, but for the CEO himself. The grand ball, intended as a strategic formality, had become an unexpected revelation. Alara's stunning transformation sent ripples through the city's elite, turning heads and sparking a frenzy of whispers. The unassuming wife had not only appeared, but she had captivated. Liam Thorne, usually so composed, had been visibly stunned. his guarded eyes betraying a raw awe that did not go unnoticed. "You stunned me at the ball." "Ilara," he confessed, his voice earnest. "Not just with the gown, but with your grace, your quiet confidence. But that was only the beginning. You showed me what true beauty is. Your intelligence, your resilience, your unwavering integrity, your compassion for your grandmother, your passion for your art. You are the most extraordinary woman I have ever met." The aftermath of the ball was a whirlwind. Society pages were filled with photos of Ilara, her midnight blue gown and radiant smile dominating the headlines. The narrative shifted from a mere contractual marriage to a blossoming romance, a Cinderella story come to life. Ilara found herself the subject of intense fascination, a stark contrast to her previous invisibility. She handled the sudden attention with a quiet grace, a polite smile for every curious glance. But inside, she felt a strange mix of triumph and discomfort. The gown had given her a temporary shield, a confidence she hadn't known she possessed, but she knew it was still a performance. He knelt before her, still holding her hand, his eyes filled with a raw vulnerability she had never seen. "I hired an ugly girl for a fake marriage, Ilara, but I fell in love with the most beautiful woman I've ever known. This contract was supposed to end, but I don't want it to end. I want this to be real. I want to spend the rest of my life with you, not out of obligation, not for a will, but because I love you, Ilara Vance. Will you truly be my wife?" Liam, meanwhile, was grappling with a profound internal shift. He had hired a woman he believed to be plain, a safe, unthreatening solution to his corporate problem. But the woman who descended the staircase was anything but. He found himself replaying the moment in his mind, the way the light caught her hair, the subtle curve of her smile, the undeniable sparkle in her eyes. He had seen beauty before, but never one that resonated so deeply, that felt so real. He began to observe Ilara more closely, noticing the intelligent glint in her eyes when she read, the gentle way she spoke to the staff, the quiet determination in her movements. The unassuming facade was cracking, revealing layers he hadn't bothered to look for. Tears streamed down Ilara's face, tears of joy, of relief, of a love so profound it stole her breath. She had never dared to dream of such a moment, of a man like Liam Thorne seeing beyond her facade, seeing her. His uncle, Marcus Thorne, was far from pleased. He had watched Ilara's entrance with growing irritation, his initial surprise quickly morphing into a cold fury. This was not part of his plan. A plain wife was meant to be a non-entity, easily dismissed. This Ilara, this radiant woman, was a complication. He saw the way Liam looked at her, a look he hadn't seen on his nephew's face for years, not since his father's death. This was dangerous. "Yes, Liam," she whispered, her voice choked with emotion. "Yes, 1,000 times. Yes, I love you too." Marcus wasted no time. He approached Liam, a forced smile on his lips, but his eyes were sharp and calculating. "My dear Alexander, your wife certainly made an entrance. Quite the transformation. One might almost wonder if this sudden beauty is authentic." The implication was clear. Ilara was a fraud, a carefully constructed illusion. He rose, pulling her into his arms, holding her tightly. It was a kiss unlike their first, chaste and formal. This was a kiss filled with passion, with longing, with the promise of a shared future. It was the culmination of a journey that had begun in desperation and ended in an unexpected, profound love. Liam's jaw tightened. "Ilara is authentic, uncle, in every way." The contract was no longer a binding agreement, it was a faded piece of paper. Their marriage, once a pretense, was now a vibrant, undeniable reality. The ugly girl had not only stunned everyone in a gown, but she had captured the heart of the CEO, proving that true beauty was always found within, and that love, in its most unexpected forms, could conquer all. The heartfelt confession and the passionate embrace in the library marked a profound turning point for Liam and Ilara. The contract, once a rigid framework, had dissolved into the warmth of genuine affection. Their marriage, initially a facade for the world, was now a vibrant, undeniable reality, built on mutual respect, shared struggles, and a love that had blossomed in the most unexpected of soils. "Indeed," Marcus purred, his gaze sweeping over Ilara with a dismissive air. One does wonder where such hidden talents have been all this time, or perhaps what motivates such a dramatic unveiling. He subtly hinted at Alara's humble background, trying to sow seeds of doubt. With Marcus Thorne's reign of terror definitively over and his legal battles ongoing, the immense pressures that had driven Liam's life began to recede. He could finally breathe, and in that freedom, he found himself wanting to build a future. Not just for Thorne Enterprises, but for himself and Alara. Meanwhile, Liam's jealous ex-fiancée, Cassandra, a woman of sharp wit and even sharper claws, was seething. She had expected to see Alara as a dowdy placeholder, a temporary obstacle to her eventual reunion with Liam. Instead, Alara had stolen the spotlight, making Cassandra feel invisible. "I want to do this properly," Liam declared one morning, over breakfast. "A real wedding, with our friends, our family, a celebration of us, not just a formality." "Honestly, Liam," Cassandra simpered, cornering him later, "that gown is doing wonders, but one can't polish a... well, you know, she's still just that girl from the wrong side of the tracks. Isn't she? What could you possibly see in her?" Her words were laced with venom, designed to remind Liam of Alara's humble origins and her perceived lack of social standing. Alara's eyes shone. "I'd love that, Liam, more than anything." Liam, however, found himself defending Alara with a surprising vehemence. "Alara has more integrity and intelligence in her little finger than most people I know. Cassandra, her background is irrelevant. They planned a wedding that was intimate yet elegant, a reflection of their journey. It was held in the sprawling gardens of the Thorne mansion, under a canopy of blooming roses, a stark contrast to the rushed civil ceremony they'd had a year prior. Eleanor Thorne, Liam's mother, oversaw every detail with a joyful enthusiasm, her face radiant with pride for her son and genuine affection for Alara. The whispers intensified. Society gossiped about Alara's sudden rise, her mysterious past, and the undeniable chemistry that seemed to be growing between her and Liam. Marcus, sensing the shift in public opinion and Liam's growing attachment, began to formulate new schemes. He couldn't discredit Alara's appearance. He would have to attack her character, her past, and the very foundation of her connection to Liam. He would find her weakness, and he would exploit it. The most cherished guest was Alara's grandmother, Anya, fully recovered, vibrant, and beaming with happiness. Anya watched her granddaughter walk down the aisle, her heart overflowing. She had witnessed Alara's struggles, her sacrifices, and now, her triumph. Seeing Alara so genuinely happy, loved by a man who truly saw her, was the greatest blessing. Alara, aware of the swirling rumors and the thinly veiled hostility from Cassandra and Marcus, felt a growing sense of unease. The ball had been a triumph, but it had also drawn her further into the treacherous world of the Thornes. She knew that her transformation, while stunning, had only made her a bigger target. The game had escalated, and she was no longer just a quiet participant. She was now a central, visible player, and the stakes were higher than ever. The dazzling glow of the ball had faded, replaced by the harsh glare of public scrutiny. Alara's newfound visibility, while initially a triumph, quickly became a double-edged sword. The whispers intensified, fueled by the venomous jealousy of Cassandra and the calculating malice of Marcus Thorne. They couldn't attack her appearance anymore, so they set their sights on her past, eager to expose any perceived weakness or flaw. Alara, in a gown of soft ivory lace that highlighted her natural grace, walked towards Liam, who stood at the altar, his eyes filled with a love that mirrored her own. This time, there was no pretense, no contract, only raw, honest emotion. Their vows were personal, heartfelt promises of partnership, devotion, and a lifetime of shared dreams. The kiss, when it came, was a tender affirmation of their enduring love, sealed not by legal obligation, but by the deepest desires of their hearts. Cassandra, still seething from being upstaged, wasted no time. She leveraged her extensive network in high society, subtly digging into Alara's background. Her goal was clear: unearth anything that would discredit Alara, expose her humble origins, and prove her to be an unsuitable match for Liam Thorne, thereby paving the way for her own return. Life after the wedding settled into a beautiful rhythm. Alara continued her architectural work, now with the full backing and resources of Thorne Enterprises. She focused on sustainable urban planning, designing eco-friendly, affordable housing projects that truly made a difference in underserved communities. Liam, immensely proud of her work, often consulted her on the company's own development projects, valuing her innovative perspective and ethical approach. It didn't take long. Ilara had always been meticulous about her work, but the world of architecture, like any other, had its sharks. Cassandra's informants, with a little prodding, uncovered a painful chapter from Ilara's past, her final year project at the prestigious Architectural Academy. Ilara also established a foundation, named the Unseen Beauty Project, dedicated to supporting young women from disadvantaged backgrounds pursuing careers in STEM and the arts. It provided scholarships, mentorship, and resources, ensuring that talent was never overlooked due to circumstances or superficial judgments. It was her way of giving back, of ensuring that others, like her, would have the chance to shine. The project, a visionary design for a sustainable community housing complex, had been Ilara's magnum opus, a culmination of years of tireless work and a reflection of her deepest ideals. It was innovative, socially conscious, and widely praised by her professors. She had poured her heart and soul into it, believing it would be her stepping stone into a career where she could truly make a difference. Liam, inspired by Ilara's unwavering commitment to social responsibility, began to steer Thorne Enterprises towards a new era of ethical business. He implemented stricter environmental policies, championed fair labor practices, and invested heavily in community development initiatives. The company's image, once associated with ruthless ambition, transformed into one of integrity and innovation with a conscience. However, just weeks before its final submission, the project had been inexplicably sabotaged. Crucial digital files were corrupted, physical models mysteriously damaged, and key research data vanished. Ilara, devastated and overwhelmed, had desperately tried to salvage it, but the damage was too extensive. Despite her frantic efforts and her professor's understanding, the project was deemed incomplete, and she was forced to graduate without the distinction she had worked so hard for. The incident had left a deep scar, a painful memory of injustice and helplessness. She had never spoken of it, bearing the humiliation deep within her. Their home, the Thorne Mansion, was no longer a grand, empty space. It was filled with laughter, the scent of Ilara's architectural sketches, and the warmth of a love that deepened with each passing day. They learned to balance their demanding professional lives with their personal happiness, finding solace and joy in each other's company. Now, Cassandra brought it all to light. She leaked carefully curated fragments of the story to a sensationalist gossip column, twisting the narrative. The articles painted Ilara's project as a catastrophic failure, a testament to her incompetence, and a sign that she was not truly the brilliant architect she claimed to be. They implied she was a fraud, a pretender who had somehow charmed her way into Liam's life despite her supposed lack of talent. Ilara, the ugly girl hired for a fake marriage, had not only stunned everyone with her transformation, but had fundamentally changed the life of Liam Thorne and the very direction of his empire. She had shown him that true beauty was found not in outward appearance, but in the strength of character, the depth of intellect, and the boundless capacity for love. Their future stretched before them, a testament to overcoming adversity and building a life founded on honesty, mutual respect, and a love that truly saw beyond the surface. Years unfurled like a beautifully painted scroll, each one adding new layers to the extraordinary story of Ilara and Liam Thorne. Their love, forged in the crucible of adversity, proved to be not just resilient but profoundly transformative. They had defied societal expectations, navigated the treacherous waters of corporate intrigue, and emerged as a couple whose bond was admired and whose journey inspired. The headlines screamed Thorne's Cinderella wife, a flop in architecture, and hidden failures of the CEO's bride. Thorne Enterprises, under Liam's visionary leadership, flourished. He steered the company towards more ethical and sustainable practices, investing heavily in renewable energy and fair labor initiatives, aligning with the values his late father had championed. He often credited Ilara for reminding him of the human element in business, for grounding him in compassion and purpose beyond profit. Ilara saw the articles, her blood running cold. The old wounds, barely healed, ripped open. The shame, the frustration. the feeling of being utterly powerless. It all rushed back. She had worked so hard to put that painful memory behind her, to move forward now. It was being dragged into the harsh light of public scrutiny, distorted and weaponized against her. Ilara, now a celebrated architect and artist, continued to create breathtaking works, her canvases often reflecting themes of resilience, hidden beauty, and the triumph of the human spirit. Her art was no longer just a personal escape. It became a powerful voice, advocating for social justice and supporting emerging artists from underprivileged backgrounds. She oversaw the Unseen Beauty Project with dedication, seeing countless young talents blossom under its wing, ensuring that no one's potential was overlooked due to their circumstances. Liam, seeing the headlines, felt a surge of protectiveness mixed with confusion. He knew Ilara was brilliant. He had seen her sharp intellect firsthand. He confronted her, not with accusation, but with concern. Ilara, what is this? These articles, they're attacking your professional reputation. Their life together was a harmonious blend of high society engagements and quiet, intimate moments. They traveled, explored, and continued to learn from each other, their bond deepening with every shared experience. Liam, once the stoic CEO, found a newfound joy in life, a lightness that Ilara had brought into his world. Ilara, once the struggling architect, embraced her role as Liam's partner, not just as his wife, but as an equal force in their shared endeavors, shaping both the corporate landscape and the philanthropic world. Ilara's shoulders slumped. She wanted to deny it, to dismiss it as malicious gossip. But the core of it was true. Her project had failed. She looked at Liam, her eyes filled with a raw vulnerability he had never seen. They often spoke of their unconventional beginning, not with regret, but with a sense of wonder and gratitude. Who would have thought, Ilara would muse, leaning into Liam's embrace, that a desperate proposal for a fake marriage would lead to this? It's true, she admitted, her voice barely a whisper. My final project, it was sabotaged. I never knew who did it, or why. I couldn't prove anything. It was a long time ago. She recounted the details of the incident, the inexplicable corruption of files, the ruined models, the crushing defeat. The pain in her voice was palpable. Liam would smile, kissing her hair. Perhaps fate has a strange way of bringing people together, even through the most convoluted paths. All I know is, I wouldn't trade our journey for anything. You showed me what true beauty is. Ilara, Liam listened, his expression hardening. He saw the genuine hurt in her eyes, the depth of the injustice she had suffered. This wasn't a failure. It was a betrayal. A cold suspicion began to form in his mind. Marcus had a history of sabotaging his rivals, of playing dirty. Could he have been involved in this? Even years ago, long before Ilara even knew Liam existed. The timing, the nature of the attack, it all felt too familiar. Their story became a testament to the idea that love could blossom in the most unexpected circumstances, that integrity could triumph over greed, and that true strength lay not in power alone, but in compassion and resilience. They leveraged their influence not for personal gain, but to create a lasting legacy of positive change, touching countless lives through their ethical business practices and their philanthropic endeavors. Ilara's past, once her private burden, was now exposed, a weapon in the hands of her enemies. But in unmasking her painful history, Cassandra had inadvertently opened a door to a deeper truth. Liam, seeing Ilara's vulnerability and the injustice she had endured, felt a profound shift within him. The ugly girl he had hired was revealing herself to be a woman of incredible resilience and integrity, a victim of a cruel past. And he, Liam Thorne, found himself not just her contractual husband, but her staunch defender, ready to fight for her honor and uncover the truth behind her long-buried pain. The game had just become intensely personal. The articles, venomous and distorted, had ripped open old wounds for Ilara, but they had also, unexpectedly, opened a door between her and Liam. His initial confusion had quickly morphed into a fierce protectiveness, a stark contrast to the detached professionalism he had maintained since their marriage. He saw the raw pain in her eyes, the depth of the injustice she had suffered, and something within him shifted irrevocably. Years turned into decades. Ilara and Liam built a beautiful family, raising children who inherited their parents' blend of strength, creativity, and kindness. Their home, the Thorne Mansion, was no longer a grand empty space. It was filled with laughter, the scent of Alara's architectural sketches, and the warmth of a love that deepened with each passing day. Liam didn't just dismiss the articles as gossip. He saw them as a direct attack, not just on Alara, but on his judgment and, by extension, on Thorne Enterprises. He knew Marcus was behind it, a calculated move to destabilize his position by discrediting his wife, but this time, Marcus had miscalculated. Instead of driving a wedge between them, his maliciousness had inadvertently drawn Liam and Alara closer. The ugly girl hired for a fake marriage had not only stunned everyone with her transformation, but had fundamentally changed the life of Liam Thorne and the very direction of his empire. She had shown him that true beauty was found not in outward appearance, but in the strength of character, the depth of intellect, and the boundless capacity for love. Their tale became a modern legend, whispered in the halls of power and celebrated in the quiet corners of the art world. A reminder that even in the most dramatic of circumstances, justice can prevail, and love, in its most unexpected forms, can conquer all. "This is unacceptable," Liam stated, his voice low and dangerous, as he handed Alara a fresh cup of tea in his study. He had found her there, huddled on a sofa, the offending newspaper spread across her lap. "Your project was brilliant. I've seen your sketches, your designs. This is clearly a smear campaign. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this story and want to see more, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Stay with us for the next one, and while you're here, check out our other videos. Where are you watching from? Let us know in the comments below." Alara looked up, surprised by his intensity. "But it's out there now. Everyone believes it." "Then we'll prove them wrong," Liam said, his eyes meeting hers, a rare, unwavering connection passing between them. "Tell me everything, every detail about that project, about what happened." And so, Alara, for the first time, recounted the full, painful story. She spoke of the long hours, the meticulous research, the innovative solutions she had envisioned for the sustainable housing complex. She described the inexplicable corruption of her digital files, the shattered models, the feeling of utter helplessness as her magnum opus crumbled before her eyes. She spoke of the crushing disappointment, the professor's sympathetic but ultimately unhelpful apologies, and her decision to bury the memory, to move on. Liam listened intently, his expression hardening with each detail. His mind, trained in corporate espionage and competitive analysis, began to piece together a chilling picture. The systematic nature of the sabotage, the complete destruction of all evidence, the timing, it all bore the hallmarks of Marcus Thorne. His uncle was not above such tactics, and the idea that Marcus had been targeting promising young architects who might one day pose a threat, or simply to flex his insidious power, was not far-fetched. "Did you ever suspect anyone?" Liam asked, his voice quiet. Alara hesitated. "There was a rival student, Julian Vance. He was always competitive, and he had access to the lab, but I never had any proof. And he had no reason to target me specifically, beyond academic rivalry." Liam filed the name away. "We'll look into it, every angle." Over the next few days, their interactions shifted profoundly. They no longer spoke in clipped, formal tones. Liam sought out Alara, not for public appearances, but for genuine conversation. He found himself drawn to her quiet strength, her unwavering integrity, and the unexpected depth of her intellect. He asked about her architectural dreams, about her grandmother, about her life before the Thorne Mansion. He saw the passion in her eyes when she spoke of sustainable design, the gentle humor that occasionally surfaced, and the profound kindness that radiated from her. Alara, in turn, began to see beyond Liam's formidable CEO facade. She saw the burden he carried, the loneliness that came with immense power, and the deep-seated loyalty he had to his family's true legacy. He was not the cold, calculating man she had initially perceived, but a man scarred by loss and betrayal, fighting to protect what was rightfully his. She found herself sharing more, opening up about her fears and her hopes, a connection blossoming that transcended their contractual agreement. The city lights blurred outside the cracked window of Alara Vance's tiny apartment, mirroring the frantic scramble of her thoughts. At 24, Alara was a brilliant architect, her mind a labyrinth of innovative designs and structural marvels. Yet, her reality was far from the gleaming towers she dreamt of building. Her days were a relentless cycle of juggling freelance projects that barely paid the bills, and her nights were spent at the hospital, watching over her ailing grandmother, the only family she had left. One evening, after a particularly intense discussion about Marcus's likely involvement in her past project sabotage, Ilara found herself looking at Liam not as her husband of convenience, but as a true partner. "You know," she said, a soft smile gracing her lips, "when I first met you, I thought you only saw me as a solution, as the ugly girl who wouldn't cause trouble." Her appearance, a testament to her priorities, was often overlooked, glasses perched on her nose, hair usually pulled back in a practical bun, and a wardrobe consisting mostly of comfortable, unassuming clothes. Ilara blended into the background. She was the quiet, diligent student, then the quiet, diligent professional. In a world obsessed with glamour and superficiality, Ilara was, by choice and circumstance, invisible. This invisibility, however, was about to become her most unexpected asset. Liam's gaze softened, a rare, genuine smile touching his lips. "I was wrong, Ilara. Terribly wrong. I saw what I thought I needed to see. But the truth is, you're the most beautiful woman I've ever met. Not just in that gown, but in here." He gently tapped his chest over his heart. "Your mind, your spirit, your kindness. That's true beauty." The latest medical bill for her grandmother's experimental treatment lay open on her cluttered desk, a stark white testament to her mounting desperation. It was a sum so astronomical it made her stomach clench. She had exhausted every avenue, every last penny. The weight of her grandmother's fading health pressed down on her, a suffocating burden that threatened to crush her spirit. Ilara's heart fluttered. His words, spoken with such sincerity, were a balm to her long-held insecurities. The contract, the pretense, the initial coldness, it all seemed to fade into the background. A genuine connection, a fragile but undeniable bond, had begun to form between them. They were no longer just two individuals bound by a desperate agreement. They were two souls finding solace and strength in each other, ready to face the escalating schemes of Marcus Thorne together. The game had indeed become intensely personal. And now, they were a united front. Marcus Thorne seethed. Ilara's unexpected transformation at the ball, followed by Liam's increasingly public displays of affection and defense of his unassuming wife, had thrown a wrench into his meticulously crafted plans. He had anticipated a temporary, easily dismissed placeholder, not a woman who could captivate the media, and, more dangerously, capture Liam's attention. The ugly girl was proving to be a formidable, unforeseen obstacle,